Welcome to the Wealth Workshop. Whether it's investing, retirement, or building generational wealth, we're here to simplify it all. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this episode with your host, Terrified of AI.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the AfterHour Community Spotlight. We are on, I do remember this time since I just did Apple's interview, but we're on episode number 9, which is exciting that we're almost at 10. And quick background about myself, for those of you who haven't tuned in before, I bring about a decade plus of financial professional experience, but most of that experience comes in the form of financial planning, business planning, tax strategy, things of that nature. And what I don't have a ton of experience in is that short-term trading, technical analysis, quantitative analysis, swing trading, anything like that. So my goal with this series is to dive into the head of people who do have experience with that or who are good at that, and also just people that I find really interesting in the after-hour community. So today I'm really excited. I'm probably going to butcher this, but it's pronounced on after hours, tronathan, right?
Well, tronathan, but tronathan.
Tronathan. I knew I was saying it
Either
wrong.
way, it works.
I'm like, tronathan? That can't be right. So I'm sure I'll get flamed for that, but whatever. Tronathan. I have tronathan here. Um, and I'm real excited, and I love what you do for After Hour. So I wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself to the extent that you'd like to do so.
Yeah. So, well, my real name is Josh, but the reason tronathan existed is because Tron is kind of like my go-to gamer tag name. And so I was playing with this Canadian group that I play with, and for some reason they just started calling me Tronathan, and it just kind of stuck. So when I came to After Hour, I just said, you know what, I'll just roll with this, and so that's where Tronathan came from.
Nice. Where? What game?
Well, I mean, I've kind of had a multitude of games, but I mean, I played Call of Duty for a while, and the community just kind of I think I outgrew the community. It got a little bit too angry.
Gotcha.
And so I switched to Fortnite with my kids, and I got them into that, and then I got them to a point where they're better than me. And so, I don't really compete as much. But then at some point, I started kind of jumping into the stock market more, and then that became my interest, and they kind of fed that hole that I think all guys have to compete somewhere. That's kind of what investing did for me.
Awesome. Cool. So, share a little bit about kind of yourself and if you don't mind, your professional background and how long you've been a part of the After Hour community.
Yeah. So, when I went to college, I didn't actually know what I wanted to do. I actually was just like speaking to them, and they were like, "What do you want to major in?" And I was like, "I don't know, business." And so I got out of college, went into insurance, just hated that with a passion. And then one day I was given the opportunity to become a teacher. So to alternate route, become a teacher, and I took it. From there, I went and did various roles in education for about 12 years, including like curriculum design, assessment, technology support, all kinds of things. Eventually, I became a self-taught developer and did that for about 6 or 7 years, sort of working at home during the pandemic and just couldn't go back to an office. It ruined it for me. And trading was something I was always interested in, but just didn't know anything about. And during the pandemic, I started taking a little bit of money and putting it in the market. And the first stock that I really bought into heavily was a Palantir. The problem was that Palantir, when I bought in, was like, I don't know, $28, $30 a share. And it dropped to like $9. And I think at one point it dropped to $7. It just dropped horribly. And I didn't have the account basically to support that. And so I just sat there at minus like 66% for a very long time.
Gotcha.
Then last year when the bull run happened, I got like basically CPR or, a defibrillator, however you want to say it. But it kind of shocked my portfolio back into gear to where I could actually do more. And so as soon as it started ramping up for Palantir, that's when I was able to go into Tesla and Nvidia and kind of hit up and diversify to the point where, I'm in a pretty good place now. I mean, I only have two portfolios out of the 5 that I have connected because AfterHour doesn't support all of them, but it's going well.
Nice. Very cool. So thank you again for jumping on this interview. And I usually start these out by talking about your early investment journey. So did you have any experience with trading or anything like that before Palantir, or was that your first experience?
I think the problem is that when you go to college, like when you major in business or you go to college or even in high school, they only teach you one strategy of investing, and it's a good strategy, right? Like you buy and you hold, right? Our goal is to buy a good company and hold it forever. But when you do that, you do have some compromises that are made, right? So you give up the ability, if you only buy and hold, then that money is locked in. And unless you add more money to your portfolio, you're basically just locked into that one decision. And if you don't have vast amounts of money to keep adding every month, then that strategy doesn't really work.
Yeah.
And so what I ended up having to do was I had to end up watching for waves, basically, waves within the stock. And so would a stock rise, and then it's going to sit there and trade sideways, right, for an extended period of time. And so recognizing that sideways period was the key to kind of becoming successful at trading. Otherwise, I would just be chasing. And that's the problem, is that everyone's constantly chasing. And I will say that's one problem in the community.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone is just chasing posts, right? Like they'll see a post and they'll just run for it.
Well, the funny thing is that's kind of the consensus in every interview I've done, right? That's the consensus feeling about AfterHours. It's great, but there's a lot of like kind of garbage out there, and that's one of the things is there's so much chasing.
Yeah, and it makes you nervous, right? It makes you nervous to even do like call outs to stocks that are rising.
Dude, it just happened to me, and you and me. I was so happy you were there with me with it for AMD, because I'm like, shit, did I lose people money? Like, because that's not what I want to be doing. I'm nervous to make call outs after that.
Yeah, and I mean, I have that same feeling right now with Rich Tech Robotics. I mean, I actually like that stock a lot. I like the idea of robotics delivery within factories and things like that, and that's an area I love. But the only issue is when I first signaled it, it was trending up from the first time I signaled it was like 298, and then it trended up to like 370 or something crazy like that, and that was great. That was good times. But then people kept holding, right? And so at that point, it dropped to, what is it now, like 230. And so you have guilt for the people who are short-term mindseted, even though I'm still sitting there. I still like it. I'm still waiting for it to have its moment because it's not ready yet.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about AfterHour community in a little bit, but I do think that's one of the hard parts about AfterHour is that you could buy a stock, like you said, and you believe in it for the long term, but someone else might follow your signal with like a quick buck in mind, which is just two very different goals. And I think that's where a lot of people can get burned, for sure.
It is.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about your early investing journey. So when you were learning about investing, what were some of the tools, guides, or mentors that you had in order to gain the knowledge that you have today?
I will tell you the first mistake I made, just to kind of help with that helped guide me, was when I first started. I was just going to YouTube, and I would start like just finding personalities that were into stock trading, and I didn't realize that their motivations for doing the videos was really to get clicks, right? And so it wasn't necessarily about trying to match good advice.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, then I started going to Reddit. And I'm going to be honest with you, Reddit's probably been my best source of information. Once I got out of Wall Street Bets, I don't touch Wall Street Bets unless it's just just for fun.
Yeah.
But once I started realizing that there's a secret to trading, and it's one that I wasn't told in the beginning, and that is the community is really important. And so anytime you get into a stock, any of them, whatever it is, I started looking for the community. So
In Reddit.
what? Yeah. What is the community like? Are they enthusiastic? Do they know everything about the CEO? Do they know everything about the stock? Do they care? Would they use the product? Because that is a huge like green flag. Like you think about Tesla. I don't like Tesla as much right now, but in the beginning, they had this like ravenous community where they were just always talking about electric vehicles, always talking about battery tech. Every little thing that Tesla did, it was posted in their community, and it was great. And that stock just it helped fuel it, right? And so early on, I was looking at Reddit. I was trying to find these communities around a stock, and so if it didn't have a community, I didn't care about it. And that's kind of what happened with Palantir as well. I mean, that was one of my earliest investment ever was Tesla. That was my earliest one. It's the first one I jumped into, and that was because of the community, because they were so excited about it. And I love the idea of having an EV. I mean, now I've had it several, but at that point I was driving a Hyundai Elantra.
That's not a bad car.
No. It's not a bad car. It's just compared to like, all the flashy EVs, it was something special.
Oh yeah, I mean for sure. I think Joe Rogan described it as it makes every other car feel dumb. The Tesla does. So
Yeah, no, I mean, they're right. And so that community is what kind of helped me get me going. And then I started small, right? So I only bought stocks. I never touched options because I I saw enough of Wall Street bets to know how bad options can get and how quickly it can get that way.
oh yeah,
And so I was just afraid of options. I mean, I didn't start options trading probably until I don't know 3 months ago. Like I was not touching it. And so my strategy early on included buying, but then as soon as I noticed that it was trading sideways at that point, then I would start looking at what is next. But always having only 3 or 4 stocks is usually what I had in my portfolio. So I always stuck around 3 or 4. So I was always kind of riding the wave. And so you'll see in my portfolio bio, it says like wave rider. It's only because I will not just hold a stock to hold a stock. I'm going to take profits out and then I'm going to roll it into another play. And that's just kind of that's how I usually roll.
cool. Yeah, definitely some good stuff there. Speaking of the Reddit community, I know you're big on Archer. How do you feel about Archer's Reddit community? Because I've been in there a few times, so I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's divided. I mean, it's got like 3 different subs now. And what's funny is it's one of the subs was like, I don't know what happened exactly, but I know they had this mod that went crazy and started banning anyone who was critical at all of Archer. I don't know why, but if they said anything like, "Why is it taking so long to have this out?" He would just instantly ban them. And it got really bad. And I think at one point Reddit had to get involved and like kick him out of the group, so they had to actually replace the mods, which is kind of crazy for a group that's not that big yet, right? I don't remember how many users there are, but I think it's only a few thousand.
Yeah.
But the community is really supportive of vertical flying. They post constantly about it, and basically any piece of news is going to be posted 2 or 3 times in the sub because of how excited people are. And that's the key, right? That is what Tesla was in the beginning. That ravenous like need for information is what drove Tesla to move forward. And in a way, you get that sometimes with Rivian, but you don't get it as much as you do with Archer. Archer somehow has this like this excitement around it. And I know that some people in our community are really big into Joby. There's nothing wrong with Joby. It's just they're moving 2 different directions. Joby is moving more towards this taxi service, which is great. And Archer, while they say they're doing taxi, really they're moving more towards a custom experience for military and different types of, different industries, the Middle East. And so it's just 2 different industries. I think they're both going to be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I just wanted to, I've been in their Reddit community, the Archer one, and they, like you said, they're very passionate about it. So wanted to get your thoughts since that's an important piece of your what seems like to be your DD.
Well,
Any
to give you one thing, then this is how you know Tesla's gotten kind of to be like a toxic stock, and I hate to say that because I used to. I mean, I own one. I have a Cybertruck right now in the garage, so I am the person that should be telling you the opposite of this. This is how I know it's toxic sub. Now, I purposely join every Tesla sub, and I'll join anti-Tesla, for Tesla. I join every single sub. I was actually banned from the Tesla sub, and they sent me a message saying, because you're a member of Cyberstuck, which is like an anti-Cybertruck sub, then we're banning you automatically. And I was like, what the hell, guys? I was like, what'd you say?
I said makes sense sarcastically. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I hate
that
stuff.
I messaged them on. I was like, dude, I have a Cybertruck in the garage, but I'm also an investor. I just want to hear everybody's voice.
Yeah. No silencing dissenting opinions. Let them speak louder, and then they'll prove they're an idiot. That's my opinion of really any subject is. Whenever you're having a conversation, the moment you silence a voice rather than that you feel like is incorrect or stupid, for lack of a better term, it almost gives them more credibility than just letting themselves sound stupid. So, not a fan of silencing, really at all. But to get back to your early investing journey, I know you said you started on YouTube. Reddit was another big resource for you. Any other resources or mentors that you had to learn from?
Yeah, let me hold on one second. For some reason, I'm running a blank. I want to pull up his name because this is the one who really gave me more than anybody else. I got to find his name real quick. He just popped up. I don't watch him as much or check his, what is this called? Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. So I know I'm going to get railed on this when somebody watches this, but Tom Nash. Do you know who Tom Nash is?
I have no idea who that is. So I will. Is it a YouTube channel or
It is a YouTuber. Yeah, he is a YouTuber.
I'll link him in the description just so people can check it out.
Yeah. Tom Nash is a YouTuber, but he was the first YouTuber that I ever watched where I could tell that he wasn't just, blowing smoke and that he wasn't trying to just sell you on the stock of the week. And I knew this because every time you'd watch his videos, he'd only have 2 or 3 stocks that he would actually discuss. And it was always really good advice. So it was all about like ignoring the noise, doing your due diligence, and making sure that if you buy into a stock that you actually believe into that stock, that you actually like that stock. And it's not just because you want to make money. Because if you want to just make money, then you're just going to jump at it as soon as you can, right? I mean, if you were to buy the Palantir at 28, drop it to 7, you're going to want to bail. You're going to want to jump out of that thing. Kind of like I did with AMD.
Kind of like that, huh? They recovered a little bit, so I think it's an overreaction. I'm going to end up bag holding probably AMD for a little bit.
Well, I kept my long calls. Yeah, I mean, I have calls that are out for like a year or 2. They're fine. But short term, I just don't feel it. I don't feel like holding the shares.
I don't disagree. I don't trade options really, other than covered calls. So my only option is shares. But it's not like it's a large piece of my portfolio. It's maybe 2%. So.
Well, so Tom Nash is what really got me to start thinking about value investing and the value of time. And so taking your time and buying a little bit each whenever you can, right? But the issue is that when I started, I didn't understand the concepts of averaging down. I didn't understand those concepts, and really, I didn't learn that stuff until I started really going into Reddit and really reading people's comments saying, "Oh, well, you should average down now," or you should start buying a little bit each month, regardless of whether you feel like it's a good price right now. Just buy a small amount each month, even if you have the funds. So I started looking up all those terms, started creating my own little logs and self-taught. And self-taught's just kind of how I've always rolled. I mean, I'm a self-taught developer, so it's just kind of what
Beautiful.
we do.
That's cool. I think there's a lot of, it's very interesting to hear someone who's self-taught um, versus maybe others who have more of that a formal or mentor education. I think it's really interesting. For example, I have a lot of letters behind my name. I can't say what they are, but I have a lot of book knowledge, and it took me. There's a huge difference between book knowledge and practical experience, um, and it's merging those two. And sometimes you don't even need the book knowledge. A lot of stuff can be learned through experience. So I don't think a book knowledge or just receiving all of your information from a mentor is the only way. I think people can certainly self teach themselves, especially nowadays. So I think that's a wonderful thing. Um,
You- Do you know something that I think that I've kind of learned from After Hours? And I've learned that everyone has their own toolbox,
oh yeah,
and like some people have better tool, like they're better at certain things than others. And I think that you start failing when you get out of your toolbox. Like when you start trying to use other people's tools, their tricks. That's when you mess up. And I feel like that's something that like, I mean, I made a mistake. I was look, I went down the beginning of January like 20 something grand in my account because I started trying to do new tricks. Instead, I got out of my toolbox and it didn't work. And so as soon as I switched back to my old place, it was fine. I was fine. Started moving on again.
yeah. No, I
Uh,
think there's a
but
lot to be said for that. I think I had the same thing happen to me. Not not a 20 grand drop, but when I first joined After Hours, I think there's a lot of FOMO, herd mentality. I made a lot of money on Cooler, right? That was cool. But I was so over trading, which is not like me at all. I'd be like, don't make too many trades, maybe one or two a week is kind of what I'm looking at. And and I was making like three trades a day when I first started here. So just another example of getting out of your toolbox and lost a little bit of money on that. I mean, I made it all back on Cooler, so I got lucky that that happened. But definitely finding your toolbox and learning what works for you and sticking to that. And if you're going to make changes, make subtle changes, I think is probably the way to go rather than try to just full adopt someone else's strategy. That'll never work.
yeah, and you mentioned earlier like having your what is my key strategy? And my key has always been the same is that no matter what risk we make or I make, I have to have my anchor stocks that I'm ready to fall back to or that I already have in play. And so those are the ones where I know that if I need to just go park my money because I'm being reckless, then I go park it. And I don't really carry cash much, but actually I was talking to my wife tonight. It's funny. I was going to post this on After Hours and I haven't actually done it yet, but I have a separate bank account, right, from everything that's just play. You're into math and accounting, so you'll like this. So I keep one separate bank account that is all for like play things like Apple Pay and all that stuff. And I looked at it tonight and it had like $34 in it. And so most of the time, I think people would look at that and say, "God, you're broke. Why do you only keep $34?" I keep $34 in there because I always want to keep that sense that I am broke.
Oh yeah.
And so even with investing, I'm keeping the sense I'm broke. And then if you go over my investment account in that one account, it's got like 50 grand in just the investment side, and then $34 on the checking side.
That's funny. That is funny. Um, no, I think that's a good thing. I think once people start to feel rich, they can start, and I've seen it a lot with what I do for a living. They staying hungry and maintaining wise habits even after you've made your money is what keeps your money. So I completely agree with that. One other question that I have for you before we kind of dive into the after hour community a little bit more is what do you think your biggest challenge was when you first got started with trading or investing?
I think my biggest challenge was not chasing the super cheap penny stocks. I think that was my I joined all the penny stock communities, like all the Reddit communities. And because all I wanted to do is like chase those super cheap penny stocks. And I still do it sometimes. I'm human.
Well, listen, after if you have an inclination towards that, After Hour is a dangerous place for you, sir.
I know. Look, I've had to stop. Like, I just don't even I don't even click the symbol to even know what it is. I'm just like, nah. And or if I click it and I see like it's like 20 cents, I'm like, nope. Remember your early days. So yeah, because you don't have money when you start. You have no account. I mean, and I know the After Hours community will understand this. You start and you look at these accounts with $2 million in them or $54 million. And you look at yours that has like $300 or $400 or $1,000, and you're thinking like, I have no money to play. And you don't. You just don't have the money to play because the multiplier just doesn't work out very well. So finding funds was my biggest. Like that was tough because getting to the 20,000 mark took me forever.
Well,
getting to like $20,000.
Yeah, they say that getting to $1 million from 100,000 is easier than getting from 0 to 100,000, which I completely agree with. I mean, I'm not at a million. I'm not at $1 million. I'm not even really close to $1 million. But what I can tell you is that after I passed 100,000, getting to 200 was super easy compared to getting to 100. So, so I can.
Do you remember watching that number at like 96, 97, and then watching it come back down? Because that's what I remember.
Honestly,
just trying to break that point.
You're probably gonna laugh at this, but with what I do for a living, I manage a lot of money, more than I can share here. But so I'm not looking at only my account very often. But when Nvidia and the Mag 7 went on their tear, I went from the one time looking at it at 80,000. I was like, oh, I can't wait to be in the like six figures. That's going to be awesome. And then a month later, when I looked at it, I was at 110. So I totally missed the boat on mine.
So you missed that magic moment of hitting those,
which is probably good because I probably would have been so anxious after that. And then it quickly went to like 150 after that. Just because of how my port is, like there wasn't time really to dwell in that area. So, but I think that getting to that point feels good for a lot of people, and you start to realize that money makes money for you if you do it right. So
that is a key thing about even outside of investing that people don't realize is money makes money and debt makes money. And so people don't get that.
With that.
I know you do have to be careful.
Let me put a little disclaimer on this. He's talking about good debt, not bad debt, not credit card debt.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not talking about credit card debt. I'm talking about like, okay, for example, like the fact that I have a rental property, right? So I have a rental property that I'm then able to, gain equity through them renting it each month. And then I'm able to borrow against it to put into other businesses, which then make money.
And then you can also depreciate the full value of the asset, even though you don't own the entire asset, probably.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's the thing. It's like the real money glitch is understanding the system. I mean, that's really the money glitch.
Yeah, that is the money glitch for sure. Talk to Color of Cash. He I don't know if he shared this, and I don't think he would care if I did, but when he files, he has a real estate professional. He's able to file as a real estate professional. I won't really say more than that, but that's a crazy money glitch, being able to file as a real estate professional, because of what it allows you to do with all of your income. So understanding the system and how money works is criminally undertaught in the United States, probably for a reason, but that's tinfoil hat that we don't really need to get into
trust
too
me.
much.
I put that hat on all the time. I just don't post about it.
Yeah, I love wearing it. I just don't want to. That's beyond the scope of this interview, I guess, is what I'll say.
Yeah. Well, as far as investing goes, when I say like you're understanding that when you have like let's say that you are really big into Palantir, which I am. Let's say you're really big into Palantir, and you have $10,000 worth, all right? And so then you see this run up where it's like what it did the other day, where it jumped up like I don't know, 20 something, 30%.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see this run up coming and you start seeing it running up, then you can grab margin safely. And I'm saying safely. And I would only say this once you get comfortable with margin, but you can grab margin, ride that wave up, sell the stocks, keep the profit. And that's what I'm talking about. One of the tricks that we use. Now, the problem is when you use too much margin, you get margin called. I mean, there's one person in our community that I saw the other day. She had 750,000 margin. Now she's got a $3 million account, so it's not really that much, but it's a lot.
Yeah. If you're doing it right, margin's dangerous in a down market, but in a bull market, margin's making you more money. So
yeah, and the
I
trick
don't
is
want to
not using it
encourage
like
people just to use margin willy-nilly, but it's a good tool to understand so that if the time comes that you feel like you want to use it, make sure you understand it completely. I think that's what I'll say about it.
Yeah, I mean that, and then the super dangerous thing, which is naked calls.
Oh, naked calls are.
I can't say this enough to people. If you do, you're basically, it's a suicidal path. Anything like that is suicidal path, in my opinion.
Is one time. All it takes is you being like, you know what? All the analysts say Palantir's price target should be $49. And if you don't do any research, right, and you see a price target, you're like, oh, all the analysts think it's worth this, and you just wrote a naked call on Palantir, you are totally screwed right now. So I think people need to be very cautious of naked calls for sure.
Have you ever explained naked calls to your audience? Like, have you ever talked to them about what they are, basically?
I haven't, but if you want to take the opportunity to do so, go ahead.
Yeah. So let's just imagine like this. Let's say that you sell. Let's just say you sell naked calls for Palantir. Let's just say that. So Palantir is $100 a share, and you sell naked calls. What does that mean? Let's say you sell one call, which is 100 shares that you do not own. And so you do not own these 100 shares. And so you have no collateral. That's what basically naked means, is there's no collateral backing it. And so when you do covered calls, that's essentially meaning that you already have the shares. You're going to have them sit there. You're safe. I mean, the worst case scenario when you sell this stock is that you sell it for a price below what it currently has already gotten up to. That's the worst case scenario for covered calls. For naked calls, I mean, you can go from $1 million to $40,000 in one set of naked calls.
Yeah, technically,
and that's why
lost potential there. Because
I mean, there was a kid who committed suicide like 2 years ago because of it.
Craziness. I think that people need to educate themselves before they try to do any kind of naked options, because essentially, you have to, if you don't have the collateral behind the call that you sold, you will be forced, technically, probably go bankrupt instead for some people, to purchase those stocks, those 100 shares of Palantir. Let's say you wrote a $60 call because price targets were at 49. You have to, instead of just giving away your shares for $60, because you don't have them, you have to then go purchase 100 shares at $100 each, which is just substantially more than any premium you got. Like, technically, you have room for infinite loss. So those are dangerous, and I would be wary of naked options in general, unless you have other specific strategies you're kind of tying in with that, which I don't want to get too deep into options because that's not really my cup of tea to talk about. But
I'll be honest, I don't know why naked options are even a thing. I'll just be full trans. I know that some people use it to make crazy amounts of money, but I don't think most traders, including me, should have access to that.
Well, I think
that ability.
I think your knowledge base needs to be tested by the brokers a little bit better, in order to get approval for that. I think that could be done a little bit better, but I digress. I think that as long as people hear us talking about the fact that it is highly risky, then we've done our job here.
Oh yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about AfterHour as a community. how did you discover? I would assume it's through Reddit, but how did you discover After Hour?
I first found that sub, right, race to 10 million, and I thought, that sounds like a really appealing number to get to, 10 million. And so I joined the sub, and then because Sir Jack, like he posts, he basically posts a comment response before he got some helpers. He was posting a comment response to every single person's post, which, God, that must be time consuming. But every
For
single
sure.
time he's basically like, he was like, "Hey, join us on After Hour," and I was like, Jesus Christ, another app. And then he just kept doing it, and eventually, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna join that. So I joined that, and I didn't really understand what the purpose of the app was. To be honest with you, I didn't get it.
Oh, I didn't get
I
it
thought I
at
was going to go
first.
on there to trade. So, did you think it was a trading app? Like, I thought it was a trading app at first.
I had no idea what it was going to be when I was getting in there. I just was like, let's see what this is about. And then I didn't realize it was like a social media, pseudo social media app that is focused on investing where you can share ideas. And like, that's not what I thought it was. I thought it was an actual trading app where you do all that from the app. So I think I was on the same page as you.
Yeah. So, well, when I joined, I didn't, of course, I didn't have any followers, right? So I joined, didn't know who to follow, and then for whatever reason, Vivian followed me. Like, I think I commented on something, and Vivian followed me, and I think she's got like, and then I saw her port, and it was like 850,000. I was like, well, that's crazy. Like, that's like, why follow me? But that kind of ignited my curiosity. I was like, well, if she's got 850,000 in her port, then what do the other people have? Like, what is this? I never look at, we're taught, I'm in the South, and we're taught never to ask anybody about what's in their bank account or any of that. So this was interesting. So at that point, I started exploring, and then I think I saw like Doc Hollywood and a few of those, and I was like, Jesus,
Yeah,
they
there's some
have
whales here,
already
huh?
made it. Yeah, they're heavy hitters. They've made it. And if they've made it, they know how to make it. And if they know how and they're willing to tell me how, then I want to learn. And that was kind of like what ignited that passion. And so I just kind of lurked. And so at first I was just following everyone I could, just to kind of getting information. But I mean, that was fine. But I mean, of course, then you run into trouble, right? You run into the trouble of then whose information is the right information.
Yes,
Uh,
agreed.
so
There's a lot. I'm very selective with
yeah,
who I follow, just because there's so much there that I can't clog up my feed. I don't want to clog up my feed, so I'm pretty selective about who I follow. But I agree. I was the same kind of boat. Like, hmm, there's a lot of people with a lot of money here. I mean, I work with a lot of people that have a lot of money, so that's not different to me. But most of the people I work with that have a lot of money from their jobs, not because they were wildly successful in the market. So this was a different kind of successful for me that I was eager to learn about, similarly to you. Um, and I think my first post, even on After Hour, was like, "Aren't you concerned with like a lot of bots and and uh, and like fake accounts and becoming toxic like Reddit?" Um, which I'm shocked
and
that I'm shocked at how not toxic it is. Still, I'm still mind blown by it. I mean, there's a little bit of it, but compared to Reddit, it's like cesspool versus like upstanding citizens. Not completely, but
I think it's funny that on After Hours, like what I've noticed is like on Reddit, if you like are like just talking down to somebody, people join in like chorus in, like it's like an echo, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're an idiot. I mean, you're terrible for thinking this."
yeah,
And then in After Hour, it's like they do the opposite. So like
yeah,
somebody
right.
come in
The
there and just
opposite.
talking smack, and they're like, "Nah, man, you don't understand. Like he actually is really honest about these things, and he cares about the community and what he posts." And
Yeah,
that's the difference. That's like the key, the secret sauce. And
yeah. To me, that's
anybody who's
everything.
toxic gets knocked.
Yep, to completely agree. So we're definitely on the same page here. Um, so you found it through Reddit through the race to 10 million. That's been a pretty common answer here. Um, But how has After Hour, the community, influenced your investment strategy or trading practices?
Yeah, so it's made me more patient. So
That is a
I
good
was
answer,
one of
mainly
the
because I think that most people get less patient.
yeah. See, and the key thing was okay. So we've had a lot of turmoil in the past few weeks, right? I mean, we've had a lot of turmoil in the past few months, but we've had a lot of downturns where everybody's ready to see the market just crash. Like everybody thinks the crash is coming constantly. Like it feels like this, they're always on the edge. But then you see the ones who have like those ports that are what 1.5, 2 million, 8 million, and they're not budging. They're not responding as much to the threats of the market. And so why is that? And that was the key, right? Why is that? It's because they've already been through this. They know that it's gonna cycle through. It's gonna be fine. And the majority of the time, I mean, only every 6 years does it actually get like a real crash. Or is it 4 years? 4 to 6 years. You get like a real
A
crash.
full market cycle is closer to 10 years.
Okay, so
We're in a
we're
weird one where COVID happened and then we had um, interest rate hikes and inflation caused by COVID. So that was a weirder one. But historically, a market cycle lasts roughly 10 to 12 years.
yeah. So we're like, but it helped me calm down. It helped me chill a little bit. So like when I saw Palantir drop from $84 a share or 83 down to 64, um, that's a big drop for Palantir. And when all the analysts, which I have a whole nother thing about the analyst, but when all the analysts are saying that this should be $35, $30 a share, you know, you start like, it gets in your head and you start freaking out and you're like, are they right? Like, is this going to drop to $30, $35 a share and just like cut my port or this position in half? So you freak out. And so, and that's the one of the only downsides about after hours is, and then that's why I often post like fun things when things are down, is because I do want people to like not get so in their own head that they like freak out, sell out of positions, and then it goes back up the next day.
Yep.
Because that's what I was doing that with recursion. Is it recursion? RX. I was doing that a lot. Man, that stock is so inconsistent. Like it is the most inconsistent thing in the world. And it would drop like $1.50 a share like the next day.
Yeah, that's a swing trader's dream, but it certainly wasn't for me. I mean, I just finally sold at a profit today. Um, like Double Down to Win, I love Double Down to Win, but he's been swing trading, I think, it for 8 times so far. He's made a ton of
Yeah.
money off of it. So I think for some people it's great, right? But like that one wasn't for me. So I agree there.
And what was it? Doc Hollywood's the one who then got me to calm down. I will say that. That's one of the reason why him and the Hitman, they would always post like during those times of turmoil. They would post and say like, "It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Just chill." And once I started actually listening to that, like no more problems. Like I didn't stress about it. I went to bed that next night. It was fine. It was not a big deal. The ones who people should be suspicious of, I know that we talk about like the positives of the community, but if somebody, this is something I have a problem with. If somebody that has a no port connected, I just don't. I mean, like no port at all connected, then I'm not listening to any advice they have. I'll just be honest with you, like nothing. I mean, if they don't have their value showing, that's fine. But if they have nothing connected, that's a problem to me. Because it signals, it's like it makes me cautious. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that you're probably right for like 80 to 90% there, um, of the community. Like if they don't have a portfolio connected at all, um, it's probably nefarious. I will give one person that I'm aware of that I follow a pass. Um, Alloy does not have anything connected. But I've had conversations with him and I understand why. And um, to me, that one's not nefarious, right? Just to point one
Yeah,
out that
he's
isn't.
built up his reputation. I think he's built up his credibility. You know what I mean?
Exactly,
Like,
exactly. But if I had never spoken to him, it'd be the same kind of thing, right? Where it's like without a port connected, that's the whole point of the app, right? So unless you have a specific reason why, which he does, um, I don't I don't feel the need to follow you just because I can't verify anything you're saying.
Yeah, and that is actually one thing I had a problem with After Hours is the sync is kind of just always janky.
Yeah, it's a little bit janky, but growing pains.
I know, and look, I love what he's built, so I'm not complaining about it. I'm just like I know that one question I get all the time is well, you said you did this, but where I don't see it in your portfolio. It's because it just hasn't synced. The changes haven't synced.
Yeah, you can manually sync it, um, but I wish it automatically synced a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I love what he's built, and actually, like the
No, I
things
think
I
it's
love are great. The one thing that's kind of like that, and if Sir Jack actually listens to this, which I hope he does, that'd be awesome. But the chat room is kind of doesn't really work that well because you don't get notifications or anything when somebody's like chatting in the actual chat area.
Oh, I've never been
So
in a chat room. I forget they exist. It's a
they
feature
did,
that
all
I
right.
don't use at all.
Yeah, and I think it could be great. But unfortunately, since you never know anybody tags you in there or anything, it just kind of this like you post a message and you forget about it. And that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, I think the community is great. I think it has room to grow. I think it's if I will tell you this, if I had the ability to actually invest in, like if he gets to the point where he IPOs and I had the ability to invest, I probably will. Um, the terms are good. But if he gave the community the ability to first buy in, that would be awesome.
That would be
I think that would be powerful.
I'd probably throw some money at that too. Um, anyway, I think this is maybe a good opportunity. I know you said that just to bring it back, that you gained a lot of patience from being part of the community, and you name dropped a couple people, Doc Hollywood and the Hitman. Any other specific members that have impacted either your learning or the decisions you've made along the way that you'd like to give a shout out to? And I tag
Hmm.
everyone in the description when I post this on After Hours so that people can see who you follow that you really enjoy and get the opportunity to check them out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll give you one of the obvious ones just because he is pretty prolific in the app, but Squeeze Kid is pretty prolific. But I don't follow him necessarily because of RXRX. I mean, the RXRX is great, and I actually do have a position in it, but it's not because of that. It's because that he does have when he recommends a stock, he has a passion for that stock, and he's going to follow through on it, and he's not just going to wing it. So he's going to go deep into it. He's going to know. He's going to know the CEO's blood type. He's going to know everything about that stock.
Yeah, he does know a
And
lot
he's going
about
to
the
post about
stocks.
it.
Yeah, the ones he posts about, he knows a lot about.
Yeah, and he's going to go deep into those stocks. And he's always going to follow them, and I appreciate that. And that is why that's a key thing. And that's a reason why I like him. He also keeps it positive. I mean, he gets a lot of crap. I mean, he gets a lot of smack talking.
He gets so much crap, and I don't think all of it's warranted. I think people could have had a bad experience with RXRX because of how swingy it was, but you
Mm-hmm.
didn't see him taking advantage of those swings. He held through and continued to hold through, and I hope he's right. I had to get out of it because it's not for me, that kind of a potential, such a volatile stock. Um, but I hope he's right, and I hope a lot of people make a lot of money.
Yeah, and then the other one that I've really appreciated because of his honesty, I really like Jensen Boy because he's very honest about his positions, and like even today he posted like this pretty long post about how much he hates Nvidia stock, and it's hilarious to me because of his tag, and now like he can't sell out of it, or what are we going to call him? Was Jensen Boy? I like it's he's known for being the Nvidia guy, and now he's questioning his own existence within the app as Nvidia.
Yeah, he's going to be Hawk Tan next. Do you know who Hawk Tan is?
No.
Okay, so he's the CEO of Broadcom. So
Oh,
look out for that. I was talking to him earlier, Jensen Boy, and I mean, it's not a secret. Broadcom's my favorite stock, and uh, we were talking about it, and I'm a big fan of Broadcom. Not financial advice, but we were talking about how we think it's still in a good position. So we'll see. But he definitely made a good choice with Nvidia, right? Jensen Boy did. So um,
Oh, I like Broadcom too. The price point now though is it's currently at a level now where like the multiplier is not there for me, and
I will
that's the hard thing for me.
tell you that at least right before the jump, and even during it, Capital Group, so the company that makes Growth Fund of America, um, huge investment management shop, they still put Broadcom in their value ETF because they think it's undervalued.
Really, I mean, we need more players in that space.
Yeah,
So the fact that they're
I
going
love
in there
that.
and they're still going strong, I'm severely disappointed when AMD reported their earnings.
Ugh,
I was
we can't talk
severely
about AMD.
disappointed.
I'm going to be pissed off the rest of the night.
Well,
Uh,
I want to. The only thing I want to say about it is, and I will say this is a key thing for my investment thing. If their CEO is not just like a kick-ass CEO, they don't have the leadership to like just drive innovation, then that should be a red flag. And I didn't see that red flag, and that's what makes me mad at myself. Is that their CEO has got no energy for the stock? Did you hear her talk? She has no
yeah, I was on the
excitement
call.
for the
Yeah, I
company.
was listening to the call. She didn't sound very excited. I mean, she's definitely a genius, right? And their compute is
Yeah,
crazy. Their compute power is probably the best in the world. I feel like raw computing power, but that's not what runs data centers really. Like their CPUs are amazing, but we need GPUs, and they're lagging there a little bit. And if she could create
and
a
she
really cool story around CPUs, then
there you
I
go.
think they'd do
See,
better. But I think it's been all about NVIDIA. I'm convinced that because NVIDIA is green and AMD is red, that's why AMD goes down and NVIDIA goes up.
look, we probably didn't change her color because I like when she came out there and she goes, and I'm just making up numbers here, but she's like, our AV 5600 series is doing very well and shows promise. I was like, you suck at this. I was like, you suck at marketing. I was like, you are out there just speaking tech to investors. First off, say your data center line. Just skip the whole naming convention.
Yeah, right. I I agree. I think it was not it was painful to sit through that call. That's what I'll say about it. Um,
And she speaks through a can. And the microphone they used was like an Xbox mic that came with the console.
Completely agree. Other than Jensen Boy and Squeeze Kid, anyone else that you'd like to shout out?
For moral support, I think Han Yolo is one of my favorite for moral support. He's on vacation now, but and that's Han Y0L0. I don't know why he did it that way. It drives me nuts trying to link him and stuff.
God, no.
But I did that. I spelled it out for you.
Yeah, I follow. So I do follow.
Um, but for moral support, he's good. He'll challenge me. The the fact that he kept a positive disposition after getting his portfolio up to $330,000 and then like the next day it dropping to like 100 grand and still staying positive. I was like, dude, we're brothers here. That's tough.
Yeah, that's tough for sure.
And I did learn something from him. Actually, straight up, if he listens to this, I just want to go ahead and say, after I saw his drop, now whenever I see like a profit that I'm okay with and an option, I'm just like selling it.
Yep. No one ever lost money by taking gains. Maybe they lost money
Yeah.
on different things after taking gains. But that's a different story. No one ever lost money by taking gains on a position. So
Who is that Tappa Ho that like constantly talking about his best friend who's an escort? I was just like, I love that guy. I'm just like watching him like, I don't think you're joking with us. I think she exists.
maybe.
I think
Yeah.
this is a metaphor.
Awesome. Well, last kind of question about After Hour as a community before we hop into you a little bit more. Um, if someone new joining the community listens to this, what do you think the biggest benefit of being here is?
If you ask a question, you're going to get an answer. And often it's from people with experience in this community
Beautiful.
because it's not like Reddit.
Yes, beautiful. I love that answer. Um, so I wanted to transition here to talking about your current investment philosophy, and I guess we'll take this opportunity to shout out Squeeze Kid again. Um, I was already following you at this point, but I thought it was really cool when he spotlighted your portfolio. Um, and then in the comment section, you pretty much said, "Well, you nailed that on the head. That's exactly what it is." Um, so I wanted to give you the opportunity to explain it in your own words.
Yeah. Okay. So, the interesting thing about having Squeeze Kid call out your portfolio is you kind of go through this moment of dread. So when I first saw it linked to it, and then I saw the first line, and I was like, "Oh snap! I'm about to be analyzed." And so I've never been analyzed. My portfolio has never been looked at to a point where somebody criticized it. And so he started going through there, and he identified my anchor stocks. And so I've mentioned that already previously, but basically these are my plays that I feel like are safe and that I believe in. And so my anchors were Palantir, Nvidia, and Archer. Now, at that time, I don't know if I had as much Archer. I think I only had like 1,500 shares, and so he may not have identified that one. I can't remember exactly, but
He did.
Basically, he did. He did call that one. Okay. The majority were in these stocks, and then I had a bunch of like a few random ones. And one of them was Zero Therapeutics, which I've now abandoned. But there was a few reasons why I really like Zero, and it wasn't just because it was a penny stock. It was also because looking at their actual research and having my wife look at the research, and I never mentioned this earlier, my wife's a physician, so I had her look at the research. I actually liked where it was going. I liked the company. I liked their story. But he called it out as being kind of, I don't remember what he called it, but like a dream. And it was a dream. But unfortunately, they ended up doing a reverse split and ruining that one. So that one was gone. But the other one that he identified was Humacyte. And Humacyte was an organ growing company, and one that I really love. But basically, the benefit of this was he went through there, he analyzed each one, and then he gave me an expected value from our portfolio, that was the interesting thing. And I can't. Do you have it? I can't remember what he said what the value was going to be. I think it was like 400,000.
I don't have it pulled up. I'm just going off of memory. I don't remember.
Well, what was interesting was that I suddenly had this urge to meet the target. I don't know what it was. It was almost like Squeeze Kid had then put a analyst sticker on my portfolio saying he should be at 400,000 the next year. And so it started like creating this motivation in my head. And I was like, yeah, I gotta hit this 400,000. How am I gonna hit this 400,000? So I got a spreadsheet out, started going through my portfolio plans, and I was like, all right, this multiplier, because everything's a multiplier game for me. So if I have this stock and it multiplies by this much, where we're gonna be? How are we gonna get to this 400,000? So that was a huge impact. Of course, I gained followers, but this platform isn't really about gaining followers to the point where like I'm not going to be selling. I'm not Kardashian over here. I'm not going to be selling lingerie. So your followers don't mean anything unless you get feedback from them on your plays. I mean, that's really the key. So he gave me some exposure and it helped me grow, and that was good, but it also challenged me. But what was interesting was then the comments that came below it. So people being like, evaluate my port. And I was like, not me, but theirs. They wanted themselves evaluated. And so he did. But what was interesting was Squeeze Kid does not hold back.
Oh, so, no. He certainly does.
So when I saw somebody with like just a mixture of penny stocks, and they asked them to evaluate, I can't remember what their name was, and I'm sure they're great, but he went through there and he was like, cut these 6 losers for your portfolio. And I was like, one of those, I was like, I kind of like that one.
You and your stock inclination.
I know. I was like, that's not a bad one. But anyway, but no, he is really honest about that stuff, and he did give feedback. And It did force me to keep my anchor stocks too. So even when I have like, I'll leave Palantir. Palantir trades sideways for weeks and weeks. I'll use that money somewhere else temporarily, but I do always fall back to it. So if things go bad, or I know earnings are coming up because Palantir kicks ass in earnings. Just so everybody knows, if earnings are coming up in Palantir, do not sell. You buy and you just that's the time not to sell. So because Palantir will trade sideways the whole dang quarter until earnings.
Yeah, I think that there's probably going to be an opportunity where they pull back a little bit, similarly to how they did before. Um, Not to the extent like we're not going back to 60 whatever dollars, but I could easily see a dip in the low 90s, high 80s. That could be another buying opportunity. Um,
Oh
that's
yeah, and
that's
I
pretty
would sell
typical.
and buy back in.
Yeah, that's pretty typical of
Yeah,
any big move, right? Like that happened with Broadcom right after their massive earnings. It went back down a little bit, and now it's higher than that again. But you can't have crazy growth like that and just stay there. People are going to take profits, which is going to force the price down a little bit. So, but I love Palantir. I think it's a great opportunity for people.
yeah, and the key thing here is, and you mentioned like, what is your investment strategy now? Um, my investment strategy now is that they have to have multiple sources of revenue, and that's a key thing. I do not want a company that only has one product or one key source of revenue. I don't want that. I do not want that because it's too risky. And so I want to know that they are working into multiple sectors and then they don't have another company that will take them down easily. One thing about Palantir is you never hear them speak about NVIDIA. You never hear them speak about AMD. You never hear them, they don't talk about the hardware much because they don't want to be tied to one of those companies because they want to be standalone. They'll run on anything. They'll run on Amazon Web Services. They'll run on whatever. They don't care. I love companies like that. One of the downsides of being like in Recursion is that, even though they are creating, multiple different kinds of potential medications, that's a 4-year line to get to that point. And that's really their key product, right? I mean, unless you can tell me there's a different one. I mean, really the key thing is creating those medication formulas to then go through phase trials. So it's a risky one for me.
Great. Yeah, I
I
think
still play it. I still like it, but
yeah, I can't disagree with anything you said there.
but you talk about Broadcom. Broadcom's got data centers and all these other things. That's the key. Apple. I mean, Jesus Christ! Like Apple was what was it a year ago? 140.
Something crazy like that. I mean, I think that Apple, I have mixed feelings about Apple. They're my largest holding right now. Um, but that's because Nvidia dropped off, and that's in my rules-based account, which I've said it multiple times, but I'll say it again, I will never break those rules. It's what has allowed me to be successful, and there's zero emotional trading that goes on. And and I have mixed feelings about Apple. I think that they haven't been great innovators, um, at least recently, right? They came out with the iPhone, and then other than the iPhone, nothing they've made has been groundbreaking since then. Whereas, like compared to other companies that are large, like Meta did Facebook, but now Meta's the leader in VR, right? So, um, and other things as well. But I think that Apple needs to find a new thing to create, or they're at risk of the App Store revenue that they're charging not being able to maintain that because the industry will blow them by. Um,
I think they need. I think they need kick-ass AR glasses. Personal opinion. Like what Meta did with glasses, which I have like 2 pairs. Apple needs that, but with an actual screen in it, just to stand look like regular glasses.
yeah, that could be it, right? Like if they can do that well, they have to do something well. Like because of what they've done, if they made the iPhone, which was amazing, and then they isolated the ability for other things to connect to other Apple devices due to the protocol that it requires to connect seamlessly. And between that protocol, which makes other things not be able to be as compatible with Apple as other Apple things, and the App Store kind of revenue squeezes that they have, that's really the only way that they make money. And if one of those things goes away, um, where it's either other technology outpaces Apple, that it's just starting to happen, where that it's not as attractive to just be all Apple, um, or if they get antitrust things that happen about the App Store. Both of those are real threats to Apple. So uh, I have my eye on them as being, I'm nervous about them. That's what
No,
I'll say.
I actually get it. I mean, that the one thing about Steve was he was always pushing the boundaries, and Tim is more keeping the ship unsteady, keeping the ship steady. I will say, like with the Vision Pro, I bought that the weekend it came out, and I went to the Philippines with it like 2 days later. And I have a whole story about that, and I won't go into that while I was in the Philippines, but it was not comfortable to have on a plane. It was hard to transport. It was all the things that Apple was not known for.
And I think they
So it
lost
was,
money. It's the one product that they have that isn't profitable.
and that's terrible because it was such. It's beautiful. I'm telling you, it is when you put it on, it's beautiful. It's a cool experience, but it was half baked. It was half baked, and I spent a lot of money on that, but it was not Apple. Apple usually gives this curated experience that, is perfect in most ways. It's supposed to be perfect in most ways, easy to use, and it was not. I would get hot in it. My wife put down the case in the Philippines and in a hotel, and they like confiscated it, and it took 4 hours to get them to give it to us. But that's a whole different story.
Apple's fault. That's Apple's fault.
Yeah, it's Apple's fault. We're making the thing gigantic, and she couldn't put it in a bag, so she had to carry it. But yeah, I mean, going back to Squeeze Kid. So Squeeze Kid identified my portfolio, nailed a goal, and now I'm shooting for that goal. I think I'll hit it. But the trick is, and if you look at my portfolio now, you'll look at it and you'll say, like, he's got most of his money in Palantir, because I do think they're going to like take over. But I've got some money in Nvidia. Probably won't keep it in there very long. That's just to swing it. But the big play here is those multiplier plays, those plays like Archer. Those are the big plays. That you got to find those companies, whatever they are, whatever company they are. You have to find that company. If you ride that thing until they are extremely successful, and that is how you get. Like, I don't know, WTF's like. I don't know his story, his real story. I made up a story. I don't know if you ever.
Yeah, he's got to be made up. Yeah. No, I saw it. I saw you.
I have my theory. I have my theory. He actually responded to my theory, by the way. I don't know if you saw that. He responded to my theory, and he like referenced. He said this is silly, but I do enjoy hanging out with. And then he gave me these 3 random names. And so I looked them all up, and they were all acquaintances of DiCaprio, like his siblings, nephews. And like, I'm like, I know you're messing with me, but I still think my theory is right. But either way, he didn't get that way. He got that way through either clever options playing, or he picked one stock and rode that thing all the way up. And I don't think that one stock is still in his portfolio anymore. I think everything in his portfolio now is very calculated.
I'm sure it's more than that too.
It's got to be.
There's something else there too, because no one makes that much money just off the stock market typically, right? I mean, it's possible, but usually there's other forms of income that are happening there. Some people do, like Sir Jack made it to 8 million by full boarding back to back to back, but so it can be done. But I would guess there's some at that high of a number, right? I would guess there's some sort of other, maybe that jump start in, but there's probably some sort of other income source there. That's my guess.
I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by it. I'm like if you could ever get him on, that would be groundbreaking. Which I don't think he'll even respond to anybody.
That might not.
Well, yeah. According to the theory, it's probably gonna be a female too. Watch, we're all wrong. It's gonna be some lady. She's like, I own a donut shop franchise.
Maybe, you never know.
But no,
So
I've go ahead.
no, I'll let you finish out your thought.
Well, I was just thinking that like the funny thing about the community is you don't really know people's backstories. You just know where they're at right now, right? You know where the portfolio is right now. It would be interesting, like if I was ever listening to a series, I just want a whole series about how they got there because I'm curious how Silk, I think it's Silk. You know, she's got like a $2.8 million portfolio. I'm curious how she got there. I'm curious how all these guys got there.
Yeah,
That is the key.
yeah. I haven't interviewed anyone with that large of a portfolio yet, but that's part of the reason why I want to do these is if I have anyone with that larger portfolio on, um, it'd be interesting to hear their story, right? I mean, I don't think anyone's shocked that based on kind of what I've hinted that my job is. I don't, maybe I've said it out loud, but I work with multi millionaires all the time. Um, so everyone has a different story. No one really has the same story. So I think they're all fascinating. Um,
Yeah, I have a
but
neighbor down the street who has his own plane, like a jet plane, not like a little Cessna, like an actual jet. And I just found that funny because I do not have a jet, but we're neighbors.
yeah, right. It's crazy. Everyone has their own story, and it's really interesting. Um, but we're coming up on uh, an hour and 15 minutes here. So I do want to start to wrap things up. Um, so is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of your investment strategy before we move on?
Yeah, I think I can't remember who said this, but I've seen it posted a few times, is that most of the people who have these bigger portfolios usually have one or two stocks that they're really into, and they're going to post about it all the time. And that's because those stocks have either already made them, or with me, my goal is it will make me. And if Archer does what I think it's going to do, you know, that is my ticket to those really high numbers. And so if you are a newer investor and you're listening to this video and you didn't care about anything else I said, you've got to pick your one or two stocks that you're going to be the cheerleader for. You know Squeeze Kids, you know his two that he's a cheerleader for. You know Jensen Boys, you probably know mine if you see my portfolio. Pick your two stocks. That is the key. Pick your two that you are going to cheerlead and that you're going to post about all the time. You're going to know everything about them. The CEO's blood type. You better know it.
All right, yeah. Applebottom said that in his interview. He said he doesn't know anyone who's gotten uber wealthy off diversification, which I can't disagree with. I mean, I have a relatively diversified portfolio, but most of my money is wrapped up in Nvidia, Apple, Google, Meta, Broadcom, and Palantir and Marvel. So I listed a lot of names, but all of them are liable to go off on 50%
Yeah.
returns in any given year. So, but it's not like I'm in SPY, right? That's not what I'm in. So I do agree with that to some point. If you can identify good leaders or good opportunities that all of them have the potential for high gains, I think that will definitely benefit someone or help jumpstart someone's portfolio. And then you can transition into like an SPY or just straight up QQQ. That's what Sir Jack did, at least in the portfolio that he has shared. So
I know. He's got a boring but safe and reliable portfolio.
yeah, he'll be totally.
He is reliable, and he can, this whole app can crash. He's fine the rest of his life.
Exactly. All right. So transitioning to wrapping this up, what is the most common mistake that you think most new investors make?
Oh, it's going to be the same one as everybody else. Chasing.
Jason.
You know, it's going to be that. It's going to be chasing FOMO, FOMO that thing when you see that thing, when you see those posts of those people making plus 50%, you want to jump into that thing so quick.
Oh yeah, we got a crash course on that with quantum.
And I hate the fact that I actually, you know what I hate about that? Rigetti. I know we're wrapping things up, but like I thought they were all going to crash, and I opened puts on all that stuff, all those stocks. You know what?
Were
I
you
was
off by
wrong
a
because
week?
people are not. Yeah, they're not giving up on them as quick as I thought they would. So Rigetti has gained momentum, and that put that I had went away. And you know what? That's okay because like I was trying to, in a way, I was trying to FOMO into puts. I was trying
Yeah,
to run. I saw the news and I tried to jump into puts, and the market doesn't do what you expect it to do. Stocks
yeah,
don't do what you expect it to do.
agreed.
So what? I mean, we always see that quote from Warren Buffett, where he basically says that what does he say about? You probably know better than I do. I can't remember.
He's got a lot.
Always inverse the market. You always inverse the market sentiment. The market, if they think it's going to crash, you get
Yeah,
greedy. That's that
yeah.
greedy thing.
The fear index is a very good contrarian. Um, the greed fear index, I forget what the actual name of it is, but um, very, very reliable, at least in the past 10 years, contrarian indicator. So there's definitely validity to that. What is the
Yeah.
best piece of investment advice that you ever received?
The okay. The best is don't ever invest in a company where you won't use the product. And I I I got that from Warren Buffett because he said that he always invested in Procter and Gamble because people are always going to need toothpaste. And when he said that, I thought, I'll only invest in companies where I will use the product and I understand the product. That's the best advice I ever got.
Beautiful. I love it. Um, is there anything else you'd like to share about anything before we jump into these rapid fire questions?
Hmm. If you are, if you don't know anything and you feel stupid in the market, you 100% should just do index funds until you feel comfortable. That's probably where my the one thing I just want to say. I just want to say it. Like if you don't feel like you know options, fine. If you don't know the companies, fine. Just do S&P. Just do QQQ.
Yeah,
If that's where your knowledge base is, and don't feel shame from it, and you'll probably beat still the
oh,
majority of the traders in the app.
you'll beat most of the people in the app 100%. There are some people that are going to do really well and destroy the indexes every year, but then you're going to have a lot of people who lose a lot of money every year. So
Yep.
there's nothing wrong with index funds at all. Um,
Yep.
so I completely agree with that. All right, rapid fire question time.
All right.
What's your favorite song?
Poker Face by Lady Gaga.
All right. Uh,
I know. I know.
not what I was expecting, but I'll take it.
I know. I know. I know.
So it doesn't really work like this anymore, but back in my day when I was younger, um, you're flipping through the channels, right? Movie comes on. What movie could come on that you physically can't change the channel and you have to watch it to its end?
Oh, I know that so easily. Braveheart.
That's it.
Braveheart. When he yells freedom at the end, it gets me every time. Still to this day.
Hell yeah. Nice. Um, do you have a favorite quote?
Hmm. Favorite quote. I can't even remember who said it. We came, we saw, we conquered. Who was that? Caesar?
I don't know, but I like it. Good one.
We came, we saw, we conquered. I think it was Caesar.
Beautiful. What? Sorry, not what. Uh, if you could spend the day with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, and this is straight up. It would be Steve Jobs if I could spend the day with him and just ask him questions because I once met the person who made his life possible. Nolan Bushnell of Atari.
Hmm.
I once sat at a table with him and had dinner like at the same table as him, and he just told me how fascinating Steve was, and it'd be Steve.
Nice. Very cool. That would be a fascinating mind just to be around for a little bit. Um, so I think that's a great one. And last question, this one's after hours specific, and I feel like I know what the answer is. But if you had to full port or bust into any one stock, gun to your head, what would it be?
Oh, I've thought about this so many times. Like I have to full port and leave it, like just leave, like no more trading, just full port and go.
You could put for
um,
let's say for the next month,
oh, for next month?
however you want to frame it.
Yeah.
Strongest conviction play. Let me switch it to that.
If I had to full port for a month, I would go Palantir. I think you knew
Volunteer.
that. I would go Palantir.
That's what I thought it would be. Perfect. Uh, well, I really appreciate you hopping on here and doing this interview. I've really enjoyed following you, and you bring some light to the community, especially recently when there have been some red days that have people down. So I appreciate you for that, and thanks for taking the time today.
Hey, anytime, man.
Awesome, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Uh, we have some more of these coming in the pipeline, and some other ideas as well. So stay tuned and look forward to having you on next time.